When you see this kind of pattern on a yogurt pod, you instantly know it's Greek-style yogurt that's inside. The blue and white is from the Greek flag, but the angular meander pattern goes back to ancient Greece, where it used to decorate vases. Yogurt pots are mass-produced bits of recyclable plastic, but Greek vases were the height of careful craftsmanship, and the meander pattern invoked a rich web of associations. This is why exploring the meander takes you to the heart of Greek culture. I recently came across an old second-hand vase that seemed to provide an opportunity for having a go at this kind of decoration. I've already added a palmette motif, and now I'm going to see if I can add a meander. As I contemplate how to go about this, I'm starting to appreciate how meticulous and careful the vase painters of old were. I started by practicing on a take-out coffee cup. And first of all, I had to work out how to make sure that, when the pattern had worked its way all around, the end joined up seamlessly with the start. I also decided to take a dive into the cultural context for these patterns. Turns out the original Labyrinth is not quite what we thought. According to myth, Daedalus was the designer of the Labyrinth built in Knossos in Crete, which imprisoned the human-eating bull-headed Minotaur, and the local princess Ariadne helped the Athenian hero Theseus defeat this monster and escape the prison by following a thread back through the twisting passages. This myth comes to us from the classical period, but earlier, in Book 18 of Homer's Iliad, in the passage describing the images on the magnificent shield crafted by the smith god Hephaestus for the hero Achilles, there are lines that describe a dance ground made by Daedalus for Ariadne in this same place, Knossos. Yet, there actually was something in Crete back in the earlier times called the Labyrinth. A linear bead tablet found at the Palace of Knossos, dating from around 1400 BCE, contains the Mycenaean Greek word for labyrinth. This inscription appears on a tablet which is an administrative text listing ritual offerings. It records that a jar of honey was being offered to the mistress of the labyrinth, and a separate jar to all the gods. This inscription is the earliest known reference to the word labyrinth. It's a powerful piece of evidence that the term did not originally mean a maze-like prison. Instead, it seems to have referred to a sacred place or a sanctuary, possibly the Palace of Knossos itself. The mistress of the labyrinth is likely a goddess who presided over this sacred space. Scholars like Carl Karenyi have long speculated that this goddess is an early form of Ariadne and that the original myth was about a divine female figure associated with the sacred place, not a human princess. Linked to this, a theory proposes that the word labyrinthos is derived from the Lydian word labrys, which means double axe. This leads to the etymological conclusion that labyrinth originally meant the house of the double axe. The double axe was one of the most prominent sacred symbols in Minoan Crete. It's found throughout the archaeological record, including being painted on palace walls, carved on altars, and displayed on top of poles in sacred places. The Hagia Triada sarcophagus, for instance, depicts a double axe on a pole as a central part of a funerary ritual. This interpretation fundamentally shifts the meaning of labyrinth. It was not a prison maze for a monster, but a sacred place of the gods, and a particular goddess, the mistress of the labyrinth. Might Homer in the Iliad have been recording a memory that sacred choral dances were performed for the goddess in this place? A direct translation of this section in the Iliad would be, and upon it, i.e. the shield, the renowned limping god wrought a dance floor, like to the one which once in broad Knossos Daedalus had fashioned for Ariadne of the beautiful tresses, and on the dance floor youths and maidens worth many cattle were delighted. The hands of the maidens lay on the wrists of the youths, and at one time they would run with their skilful feet very easily, just as when a potter with his hands sitting at his wheel tests it to see if it will run well, and At another time, in turn, they would run in rows towards one another. I'm not sure the maiden's worth many cattle bit has aged very well, but there's a lot of interesting stuff here. The Greek endechoron translates to "and upon it a dance floor." Choros here is the key word. It means the dance of a circling line of dancers, or the place where this dance happens, signifying a place of communal, rhythmic, choreographed movement. A dance floor might just be a flat area, but this one has not simply been built, it has been meticulously fashioned, eskessen. This is a form of the verb askeo, meaning to fashion or practice, or to prepare with skill. It's a powerful word that connotes meticulous, dedicated craftsmanship or preparation. When Homer uses it to describe Daedalus's work, it underscores the legendary inventor's mastery. This implies an artful, decorative scheme for the dancing place, one that mirrors the skillful steps of the dance performed upon it. An appropriate conflation because of the equivalence Homer's simile then highlights between dancing and the work of a potter. Homer describes the dancer's feat as skillful or expert, highlighting their mastery of the art form. They run around in a circle like the wheel of a potter. The verb theisin, meaning to run or to be in motion, is used to describe both the potter's wheel and the dancers, directly linking their actions. The equivalence between the dance and the potter's wheel is a powerful one. Homer uses it to suggest circular motion. The dance is a circular one, and the potter's wheel is a prime example of perfect circular motion. We can connect the simile to the broader relationship between Greek vases, choral dances, and decorative motifs. The link between the spinning wheel, the circular dance, and the artistic patterns on the vases speaks to a deeper aesthetic and cultural sensibility in ancient Greece. Many Greek vases depict dancers ranged round the vessel in a circular formation, often holding hands. This reflects the nature of choral dance, choros, which was performed in a circle. An example from the geometric period, around the time when the works of Homer were first written down, is shown here, where we see both dancers holding hands and a labyrinthine meander pattern. These dances were central to religious festivals and social gatherings. The circular format could represent a sense of community, a ritualistic circling of a sacred object, or the cyclical nature of life and the seasons. Depicting the dancers in a circle on a vase, which is itself a circular object, creates a beautiful harmony. The scene on the vase mirrors the form of the vessel, making the object a microcosm of the dance it depicts. The running spiral, or meander, is one of the most common and enduring motifs in Greek vase painting. It appears on everything from the elaborate funeral vases of the geometric period to the intricate borders of later styles. The artist, like the dancer, must master a repetitive, skillful action to create the spiral pattern. This connects the craftsman's hand to the dancer's foot in a way that goes beyond the Homeric simile, extending it into the realm of decorative art. When you have a go at doing meander patterns yourself, it's not long before you realise that they must have added a temporary grid, and some of the early geometric amphorae effectively confirm this, as they include checkerboard patterns where the grid formation is by definition still apparent. The meander itself may not be made of an unbroken line, but in such cases the space that it delineates is exactly that. The drawn lines therefore are the boundaries that border a labyrinthine path. For Coligny, the meander motif was an abbreviation for the labyrinth, and this certainly seems a valid point. It's certainly true of this Attic red kylex, a type of cup, that depicts some of Theseus's most heroic exploits, dating to 440 to 430 BCE. In the centre, he is defeating the Minotaur in the labyrinth, and this is denoted by the circular band decorated with meander patterns running around this scene. The angular meander is also a geometric abbreviation for a way of constructing a spiral from circle segments. The right-angled turns of the meander suggest squares which provide the centres and radii of semicircles so that these circle segments touch the lines of the meander at tangent points. In this way, the circle segments, joined into one seamless line, thread their way through the path of the meander like Theseus with his thread. It's also evocative of another part of the myth, which says Daedalus succeeded in a difficult task, threading a cord through a snail shell. According to the story, he did this by tying the thread to an ant. However, the spiral form of the snail shell also links back to the decorative running meander. In fact, in many modern Greek circle dances, particularly in the folk tradition, the circling line of dancers will often perform a figure called the koklias, which means snail. In a line or circle dance, the leader will guide the dancers in an inward tightening spiral. Once the spiral becomes too tight, the leader will reverse direction and guide the dancers in an unwinding spiral, leading them back out to a line or a larger circle. It's a moment of playful tension and release within the dance, and the name snail is a perfect visceral description of the shape the dancers create. You can see this koklias formation in many of Greece's most popular folk dances, and it's a common feature in festivals and celebrations. The path followed is the same as that traced through the meander pattern. A further connection is that Plutarch recorded that on the island of Delos, a dance was performed that imitated the twisting, turning movements of the labyrinth designed by Daedalus. According to the story, Theseus and the youths and maidens stopped here on their return from Crete after escaping from the labyrinth and first danced this dance in this place to celebrate their escape. A large black figure vase from around 570 BCE shows this incident where Theseus and the crew performed the labyrinth dance on Delos, demonstrating that this theme predated Plutarch by several centuries. Plutarch says the Delian labyrinth dance was still performed in his own time and that it circled around a horned altar. This parallels the Minotaur in the centre of the maze in myth. Horned altars were a feature of Mediterranean tradition beyond this instance, and equally it seems probable that the dance type predates the Minotaur myth, and that while the dance seemed to imitate and commemorate the escape from the monster's prison to those who believed the myth, really it was the myth that was inspired by the dance. After all, we know circle dancing goes back long before even Homer, as evidenced, for example, by the Minoan model of 4 dancers, or Camillari dancers figurine. This terracotta piece from the Middle Minoan period, around 1700 to 1550 BCE, was found in a tholos tomb at the centre of Camillari in the Messara plain of Crete. The figurine depicts 4 young males in a closed circle dance. Their arms are outstretched and interlinked, with their hands resting on each other's shoulders. They are performing the dance within a low circular enclosure that is topped with the horns of consecration, a common religious symbol in Minoan art, and one which recalls horned altars. The figurine provides direct archaeological evidence for the practice of the circle dance in Minoan Crete long before Homer.